I'm Khalid Thompson, co-founder and president of Island Space Caribbean Museum. June is Caribbean American Heritage Month. It's also Pride Month here in the US, and as such, in the spirit of inclusivity, we've welcomed our friends from the Caribbean LGBTQ community to be recognized within our walls. Tonight, we present a conversation hosted by one of our local South Florida LGBTQ advocates, who is also an attorney, a mother, and one of the curators of the Queer Caribbeans exhibit at Island Space Caribbean Museum, G. Wright Muir. We ask that viewers be respectful in their comments and enjoy the talk.
Welcome to a conversation with Staceyann Chin. This is a live interactive conversation. Please jump in with questions, comments. Please share this to your friends' pages and be respectful, as Khalid said. I am G of Black LGBTQ Liberation Inc., Blink, and Thou Art Woman. I use she, her pronouns. I actually receive and accept all pronouns and identify as a gender non-conforming woman. This discussion is part of the Queer Caribbeans exhibition and program, which opened on May 10th, 2022 at the Island Space Caribbean Museum in South Florida. The exhibition is curated and produced by Blink, which was founded by Nick Harris and myself. It is hosted by Island Space Caribbean Museum with the support of funds from the Community Foundation of Broward and Our Fund Foundation, among others. We're so excited to have Staceyann Chin featured here in the Queer Caribbean exhibition and to have her in the show today. We're going to have a 1-hour discussion. She'll be joining us for an open conversation.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Staceyann.
Yes.
Great to have you here.
Go ahead, yes.
So, you are in Jamaica and you look like you're actually in your car in Jamaica.
I know, this has been happening all year because Jamaica is 1 hour behind the US. And so things that are in my calendar marked as 7 o'clock are actually 6 o'clock in Jamaica. And if I don't make a specific ask of my calendar to say, make this Jamaica time, then I end up with what we've ended up I think I have 1 hour to get myself together and, shower but now I swallowed 2 bites of my dinner and rushed to the car to sit in the car and said, oh my God, I'm 1 hour behind. So,
well, glad you could still make it. Well, before we jump into the actual discussion, let's share a little bit about your background and some of your accolades. Staceyann Chin is a poet, actor, author, and activist. Her work includes the poetry collection Crossfire, A Litany for Survival, and the critically acclaimed memoir, The Other Side of Paradise. Staceyann has appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show and 60 Minutes, and her work has been featured in The Huffington Post, New York Times, and Washington Post. She's also a co-writer and original performer in the Tony Award-winning Russell Simmons Deaf Poetry Jam on Broadway and on HBO.
Please give it up for Staceyann Chin.
If only out of vanity I have wondered what kind of woman I will be when I am well past the summer of my raging youth. Will I still be raising revolutionary flags and making impassioned speeches that stir up anger in the hearts of pseudo-liberals dressed in navy blue conservative wear? In those years when I am grateful I still have a good, sturdy bladder that does not leak undigested prune juice onto diapers no longer adorable, will I be more grateful for that than for any forward movement in any current political cause? And will it have been worth it then?
Wow, Staceyann, always a phenomenal performance. So you got really well known during this time with the Deaf Poetry Jam. What led you to start writing and start performing?
Well, I've always been a student of literature, and my actual, interesting fact about my education. I was a science student. I did my first degree in biology, chemistry, physics, and math, and actually taught biology, chemistry, physics, and math to students for like half a year, like during my student teaching period of my life. And then, but I've always been a student who loved literature and wanted to practice literature and wanted to be inside of literature. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I ended up kind of just being a lover of poetry for such a long time, even though I was studying the sciences. Maybe I loved the stories. Maybe I loved stories of other people's survival, I suppose. And then I kind of came out as a lesbian. I had a really rough childhood, rough teenagehood. And by the time I ended up in university, I came out, because when I relaxed a little bit in university, I was like, oh my God, I like women. I think I like this woman thing. And they were in class talking about, hey, you know, what if religion's constructed? What if, you know, society is constructed? What if sexuality is constructed? And something in my head went ding, 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 ding. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, if sexuality is constructed, then maybe this thing that doesn't necessarily excite me so much is constructed, and therefore something else can be constructed for myself. And then I came out as a lesbian on campus, and the response was pretty horrific in that, like a bunch of boys, maybe about 12 of them, assaulted me sexually. And that kind of pushed me off the island, and I found myself in New York City looking for a different life, looking for a different reality. And then I missed Jamaica so much, because I was never one of those people who were like looking to leave Jamaica. Mm-hmm. I kind of saw the good life in Jamaica and wanted to stay here. And so when it felt as if I had kind of worked my whole life to get to a place where I could be, a member of society with privileges, I was very angry about being kicked out of Jamaica, even if it was self-imposed exile. And then it became a very difficult time, and I missed Jamaica, but I was so much alive and enjoying my newfound freedom around my sexuality that the nuanced space of that became something I had to speak about. And then I started being a poet. I started like screaming my feelings from stage in New York City. And before you know it, I had a career being the person who would talk about my life and talk about my survival and talk about what I would like to do with my life. I don't know. It seems like such a, interesting thing now that I'm looking back. But while it was happening, it was just tumultuous.
Right. Yeah. And thanks for sharing. And of course, sorry that you had that experience. And we have viewers commenting and saying they're sorry that you went through that experience. And we also have Diana King on live. Welcome, Diana King, as one of our guests.
What's up, King?
Yes. So Staceyann, we'll go back to coming out. You came out at a time before really anybody was coming out publicly as a Jamaican. And let me ask you this: would you consider Jamaica to be a pretty private culture? Well, hold on.
It's so.
Go ahead. Try again. Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah. Sex and sexuality are so present in how we talk about music and how we kind of make jokes with each other, and it was just very, very present in that kind of crazy way. Like, I mean, in the music, it's deeply sexual. In the way we talk to each other, in the way we tease each other about relationships, very present. Sexuality is very present. But it seems like it's a particular understanding of class that is allowed to be present and loud and public about sexuality. That there's that, and then there's also the. But there's also, you know what it is? Anything about a woman's desire is quiet. Anything about, a man's desire for another man. Anything about gender non-conformingness. All of that is very private. But heterosexuality and heteronormativity can be as loud, as vulgar, as brash. It can take up as much space.
So let me ask you, Staceyann, what led you to be loud as someone who is not all those things you described? As a queer woman, as a lesbian, this is some decades ago. Did you have any examples of people who are coming out as queer?
I don't know if I definitely had no examples. I mean, like, I remember reading this story about two white women in Montana. You know, one of the things I discovered when I went to New York was this vast, robust network of bookstores and book lovers. And so when I was in New York, I was reading the story about how do I say this? About these two little lesbians who had this secret relationship, and then they decided that they didn't want to be secret anymore because they wanted to be proud about their young, beautiful love with the blonde hair and the blue eyes and the, notion of, white Midwestern female sexuality, woman sexuality. And they came out to the town, and then the town was like so accepting that they threw them a parade. And I don't know if I imagined some kind of parade was going to be thrown for me in Jamaica. But I was like, oh yeah, I could come out, I could go and do that. I'm going to go home, I'm going to come out because I'd spent the summer in New York. I'm going to go home to Jamaica, I'm going to tell everybody I'm a lesbian, and it's going to be great because it's not like I'm living downtown. It's not like I'm living in rural Jamaica. I'm at the University of the West Indies, where it's like super elegantly, beautifully intellectual leaning, and it's all open-minded, and in fact all of my ideas and feelings about this were a part of the larger context of intellectualizing sexuality. So I thought it would be fine, actually. I mean, I was really deeply shocked, surprised, all of that when people responded negatively. I mean, even before the attack.
Yeah, wow. And then you come to New York City. How do you connect with folks like Russell Simmons? How do you connect to get yourself on these stages?
I think I carried with me a rage because I really, really, really believed that if I worked hard, if I did my work, if I achieved upward mobility with regard to class, which I did because I was definitely born in poor rural Jamaica. I was born in a one-room shack. My grandmother attended my mother. My mother had attempted to participate in practices that facilitated abortions many times for the time that she had me, and it just didn't work. And then when she did have me, she left me with my grandmother, who was deaf and poor and, unable to manage her own life, much less care for two children. And so my mother left me with her. So I came from really, really humble beginnings. And so when I worked hard and I did well at school, and my teachers noticed me, and I have to put in here that a part of what the teacher noticed was this little light-skinned girl with two long braids that, oh my God, poor thing. And I find that it's not always the case with dark-skinned children here in Jamaica. Anyways, lots of people gave me a hand up as a kid. Lots of people said, oh my God, she's so bright, she's so smart, she's so eloquent, she's working so hard, she's so focused, I want to help her. And I made it to university. And when I made it to university, and I thought I'd made it, and therefore I'd earned the right to be safe from the kinds of brutalities that I imagined only existed in the lower class. And then I was rudely awakened when on campus such a brutal response. And I want to circle back to the question when you said, were there any examples? There were plenty of examples of people being brash in their sexuality. I mean, one of the most, polarizing figures in the Jamaican society around, human rights is Buju Banton. Mm-hmm. Buju Banton's songs spoke quite explicitly about his sexual prowess or what he's going to do with a girl. I remember, so many of our dancehall songs, which were the rulers of music in the day when I was 18, 19, 20, 17, 16, 15, were all about sex and sexuality, positions, who can do what the man is going to do to the woman, what the woman's, descriptions of the vagina in Technicolor, whether how good it was, how not good it was, how tight it was, how comfortable, how superior to other people's vaginas. It wasn't quiet. So I just thought that I could just jump on the bandwagon where I could sing the praises of the vagina as well, but they were very specific about who could sing the praises of the vagina in public, apparently.
Right. Yes, and I'll add that I grew up, so I lived in Jamaica from age 5 to 15, and I grew up when dancehall was coming up. So all of that music I'm very familiar with. And I was a DJ, and I'm somebody who actually played Buju Banton and played even Boom Bye Bye. I didn't always know that I was queer, so I share with folks often that I was homophobic, and then, came into acceptance of myself and recognizing myself. So
That's so crazy. That's so crazy that you said you didn't know you were gay. Like, I didn't know I was gay either. So I am like taken aback, agog by these young people who are like rushing down the vaginal canal begging for a gay flag or where's my gay t-shirt. They're like true going like, yes, that's what I am.
Well, I think part of why I didn't know also, and for yourself as well, is that we didn't have social media back in the 70s and 80s. We didn't see people openly gay. I didn't see people openly gay. I saw jokes on TV, if you remember, like Three's Company and Mr. Roper making jokes about Jack Tripper being a gay guy. And I saw jokes, but I didn't see like, here's a lesbian couple. So I didn't see examples. So it's like, I'd say it's beyond my imagination, And then, so I learned the homophobia and then, just adopted that, but then I had to come to terms with like, hey, this is who I am. So, talking about queerness in Jamaica. So you left in like the 80s, late 80s, early 90s?
I left early 90s, mid 90s actually.
Mid
90s.
And now you're back in Jamaica since the pandemic. I saw that you did move to Jamaica.
I know, I mean, you identify as a woman because I'm calling you girl. I don't want to misgender you.
Girl is good. I identify as a woman. Yes.
Okay. So, I'm in New York. I just bought a house in New York. I'm stuck in the house. Can't go nowhere because it's COVID. Stuck in the house. But it wasn't too bad in the summer because I was renovating and I was inviting everybody, come over. I have drinks for you. Come over. I have food for you. And we'd be outside working social distance, like on doors and floorboards and like pavers and all that stuff. And somewhere around Christmas, I was like, holy, can I say fuck? I'm not going to be in this house because it just got super cold and I was like in the house and the kid was like, do you think anybody's going to come by, Mama? Mama, is this just me and you today? Do you think somebody will come and visit us today? Hi, Mama. Mama, do you think somebody's going to come? I was, Jesus, I cannot. And I was like, you know what? We are going to Jamaica for 2 weeks. We're going to go to Jamaica. Put your clothes together. Figure out what you're going to take to Jamaica. Just 2 weeks. And I have not left because when I came home and I saw how different life was here for me, because I didn't have like all the sweet, sexy things in New York to distract me. I just had to be here because New York was this place of like death and COVID and crazy. And I moved here, I got here, and after 2 weeks, I was like, well, let's spend another 2 weeks. And then let's spend another 2 weeks. And then it was 4 months. And then we were like, you might as well start school in September here, child. And we've been here, and we are still, working life out, living in 2 countries at the same time because nobody ain't got no money for these tickets, man. Anybody bought any tickets lately? Do you see what these people want to charge you for a ticket from Miami to Kingston? I don't know.
Too much.
Only the independent wealthy can travel now.
So when you return to Jamaica now, what do you see as and I, by the way, I do love that story of going for a vacation and it's like, I'm here. That's exciting. But what did you talk a little bit about the differences you see when you left in the 90s and what is it like experiencing Jamaica now as a queer woman?
As I said, when I left Jamaica, I fled because I was attacked on campus and I had no one to tell that story to. Not even my closest friends, I felt like I could tell them. Not even my gay friends, because I felt like I just didn't even know what to do, what to say. I didn't know where to go with it because there was just nowhere to go. It just felt very unsafe to even open my mouth to say anything about my queerness again. And it felt as if no one could stand by me because then it became dangerous for them. Even when I came out, a lot of my close friends who were really good friends were, afraid to even be close to me or be associated with me in any way, because it was a hard call for anyone to actually be associated with me, because it was just dangerous for them. And I didn't know all of that nuanced detail at the time. I just felt like I hate these people and they're not standing by me. But in retrospect, I can see how even the appearance of a friendship with me for people who were either queer or questioning or even straight might have put them in danger at the time. Cut to 20 years later, 25 years later, I am like deeply, I'm out. I move through the world quite easily. I come out to in my interviews for staff, I come out first before we begin anything to say, I want you to know who you're working for, so that if you do feel like it's not something that you can do, you can exit now. I flirt with the toll booth person. I'm in an open relationship, so I can always say to someone, there is this thing that I'm, might be interested in with you, and that's always something that I can say and maybe begin a conversation. And I'm surprised by how many people are either open to the conversation or are already in conversation with their own lives and their own experiences and their own circles about it. Queerness is not odd here. I don't think people are as comfortable saying it as loudly as I might say it, but I don't think people are as frightened as they used to be 20 years ago. And I'm telling you, again, Diana, you and I seriously quiet about it when we were young, but now, honey, child, sweet friend of mine, Diana King singer, these young people are just, they're not scared of nobody. I ain't afraid of no ghost, no homophobic person, no, transphobic person. I'm out here in these streets telling everybody what I do. I'm wearing it in my ears. I'm wearing it out. I remember when we were young people in Jamaica. I don't know if you know this when you were visiting, but if you had a thumb ring, then it was kind of something of a signal to other people. But then we were kind of always not quite sure about whether the thumb ring should have been on the left or the right, or something about the left or the right ear. We were always like, did she have it on the right finger? Is it the right finger? Yeah, but she had one on the right, and then she had none on the left, but she had like another ring on the pointer finger. So what do you think that means? It was it's like a mystery. Who can solve it? Who done it?
Well, no, yeah, I don't recall that, but I know there's so much different things we do in the queer community to how do we find each other? We have a question from Tiffany Richards. How are you able to reconcile your queerness with your Jamaican identity? How is your expression and understanding of your queerness informed by being Jamaican?
Well, I think that when I was young, I thought I was going to leave my Jamaicanness behind. And then when I went to these white people's country in America, I was like, oh my God, these white people have no respect for me. They be saying shit to me like, you speak English so good. And I'm like, yo, you speak English so well, first of all. And what in the world would make you think that Jamaicans don't speak English well? So I kind of had to deal with a lot of that, like microaggression around race and like xenophobia. So, I just was like, my party is now out. Hang on for 1 second. Let me tell them. I'm actually doing the gig from the car. So, can you drop them home so that I can be quiet? Huh?
Real life, folks.
Everybody would have to be like so quiet. Nobody could say anything. So, my being Jamaican, I think I couldn't leave being Jamaican behind. I had to always be yearning for something. Hold on, have to be quiet. So, I don't know. so we had to, like I had to leave. I wanted to leave everything Jamaican, but here I was in the US, couldn't leave everything. I was yearning for breadfruit. I wanted to hear my own accent. I was missing everything Jamaican, missing the Jamaican food, missing the sunshine, missing everything Jamaican. And then when I came home, I missed being queer. I missed the freedom of New York, and I missed being out and safe and proud and being present with all of who I was. And I think in the long run, it became quite clear to me that you can't just chop off a piece of yourself and not miss it, not ache for it. So what I ended up doing was going back and forth all the time. So even though I had like mad beef with Jamaica, I was here all the time eating food, communing with my friends. I certainly had like a large Jamaican community in the US that I frequently had events in my house. And at the end of it, coming back was remarkably satisfying, like full circle. Like I was so full up with the joy of all my parts being able to be in the same place at the same time. And I just participated in an event here for Pride Month in Jamaica. And it was like a ton of folks who came through, and it rained, and it was supposed to be outside, and so we were kind of like under this big gazebo together, and all of us jammed up there, and like people stayed, and all these people from like 20 years old to like 60 years old was like, girl, I saw you when I was younger. I first heard you when you were. I saw you I watched the video, and I don't know, like being here is just super amazing. I mean, even building this community that I'm building, and I have 70 acres of a farm that I'm like trying to make into this community space, community for activism, community for queerness, community for like women's rights, community for poor people. And it's this like strange stacking of all the pieces of us that like inform our intersectionality. And it's been like hard work, and like it's hard to get all the different groups of people because Jamaica is so about the spaces, man.
So we're going to come back. We want to talk more about the farm, and we have some of the images you shared. We want to actually pause and share one of your poems here. Is it the homophobia poem we're doing? So check this out, folks. That's not it.
It is now commonplace to hear young activists say the terms black and lesbian and political come across as confrontational. Why can't we all just be people? Tongue and courage tied with fear, I am at once livid, ashamed, and paralyzed by the neoconservatism breeding malicious amongst us. Gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, ally, questioning, two-spirit, non-gender conforming. Every year we had a letter. Yet every day I become more and more afraid to say black or radical or woman. Every day, under the pretense of unity, I swallow something I should have said about the epidemic of AIDS in Africa, or the violence against teenage girls in East New York, or the mortality rate of young boys on the south side of Chicago. Even in friendly conversation, I have to rein in that bell hooksian urge to kill motherfuckers who say stupid to me all day. Bitter branches of things I cannot say out loud sprout deviant from my neck.
Wow, Staceyann. Always so boom. Love your performances. So we talked a little bit about, being queer in Jamaica, where you are now. What about in New York City? I know you're there for a while. Like, how is that for you as a lesbian in New York City?
Again, it's always pieces of you, right? I mean, my lesbian self is so alive and full. And it was alive, more alive and full when I was maybe when we were in the 90s, definitely in the early 2000s. But queer people are being pushed out, the way that Black people are being pushed out of New York City. Queer people are being pushed out of safe spaces, affordable spaces in New York City. Affordability is becoming a big problem for everyone who isn't rich in almost any city now. And certainly post the pandemic, where the prices of everything shot up in terms of rent, and I don't know where everyone is, but I want to say that part of what we have to push back at, and that's again my beef with the LGBT community internationally, and particularly in Europe and the US of A. I think that we've lost our way in being able to address issues that talk about the most vulnerable among us. Yes, we have to talk about sexuality issues, and we have to talk about gender issues, but we also have to talk about poverty, and we have to talk about what it means to be an immigrant and how that, intersects with being queer, or, people have multiple identities that, disproportionately render them more vulnerable, more at risk than, say, others, like myself being cisgendered and educated. Like, I have a very different experience from, say, a trans person who hasn't, had education beyond high school, or like, a Black lesbian who doesn't speak, English, as easily as those of us who come from English-speaking countries. I don't know. I think that we really need to address the issue of dealing with the most vulnerable among the LGBT community, because I think every year we're just looking towards taking care of those of us who have more middle class experiences, those of us with more privilege, because now we're fighting for a bunch of different rights, while straight poor women can't get an abortion anywhere. I think that's super important to know that activism is not about getting more privilege for the already privileged among us who don't have all our privilege, that it really should be about the people who have the least privilege.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for that. So I can hardly hear, but okay. So I just wanted to explore a little bit when you talked about poverty and being queer, and also just going back to when you're talking about Jamaica and it being different. And do you believe that you experience it differently as someone you said you come from poverty or rural Jamaica? You experience it differently because you're not poor, and what do you think is the experience like? Whether you're talking about poor people here in America, what about for poor people in Jamaica?
I think that poverty is a huge variable in people's lives in Jamaica. I think less so in America, but still very much so. I think poverty here is about trying to eat, trying to get a meal. I think that there are more food banks in the U.S. I think that there are more. I mean, post-COVID, it might be just as dire. But I think that America, because America is richer and it has more resources, America's poor is richer than Jamaica's poor. Whereas here, I think, people are negotiating issues of how do I buy tampons? How do I get food for today? How do I keep my kids safe from, the elements that are just outside of her door? And I think when I was poor, when I was like a kid and I was poor, if I knew, somehow the universe and its plan for me rendered me just a little luckier than some people. I talked to people who knew they were gay when they were in spaces and they were deeply at risk. All through my teenage years, I had no idea that I was gay. And so because I didn't know that I was gay, I think that I didn't have I didn't have to negotiate my queer desire. I didn't have to negotiate what I thought other people would think of me as a young queer person. You know, I didn't have to deal with people thinking I was gay. I didn't have to deal with like my own, you know, I didn't have to deal with like struggling with religion and thinking that I was worthless because I was now this person who was poor and, you know, needing religion to save me. And at the same time, I would be who I was a kind of abomination. I think I was spared the tragedy of knowing I was gay when I was a teenager in spaces where it would have been so dangerous for me to know it or to act on it. But I know people who are, you know, poor spaces across the globe. I think it's difficult. You know, the difference is that, you know, you have further you can run to when you're in the US. If you're in Alabama or if you're in the sticks in like, you know, Florida, if you are somewhere deep in places where, you know, you could get killed, you could just get on foot, you could just get a bus ticket and go. In Jamaica, it's not so easy to get off the island because you need, you know, documents and you need expensive tickets and you need parents, you know, permission and all of that.
Okay, so we're gonna just have a little word from our Island Space Caribbean Museum and we'll be right back.
If you're enjoying the conversation and would like to see more dynamic, thought-provoking content from performing arts and cultural subjects to humanities and social justice issues, please like our page, subscribe to our channels, volunteer, and please donate using any of the methods below. On behalf of Island Space, thank you for joining us. Now, let's get back to the show.
We invite you to join us for the closing event of the Queer Caribbeans exhibition on Wednesday, June 29th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at Island Space Caribbean Museum. And I want to also acknowledge Island Space Caribbean Museum. Staceyann, this is a mainstream Caribbean space that has welcomed LGBTQ folks to have these experiences here. And here in South Florida, we typically have queer events at queer spaces, which is wonderful. But this is, for us, historic that we're having this exhibition in a mainstream space. And we have Khalib Thompson, who's our producer, working so hard and help with hosting this event. For those of you just joining us, I'm G, and I'm speaking with poet and author Staceyann Chin as part of the Queer Caribbean program at Island Space Caribbean Museum. We're going to jump into motherhood, Staceyann. You had a very public journey in terms of becoming a mom, your pregnancy, and you acted in the one-woman show Motherstruck. And I know we have a little clip of that here. And but we'll talk a little bit about what led you to be so public about the pregnancy and what led you to also just want to have who is now your beautiful daughter, Zuri.
You know, there's so many different theories about why people decide to, you know, become a parent and why they decide to take the route that they do. For me, I knew that I've always wanted a family. And when I say wanted a family, I'm not talking about I always wanted children. I always wanted to belong to a family, and I never have. And having a kid meant that I would belong to a family. I could practice the joys of being in a family. And I, you know, for a long time, I thought, oh, I was going to meet the right girl, and then I was going to marry that girl, and then I was going to have a baby with that girl, which now that I'm looking back at it is quite heteronormative. And then I decided, like, oh, I can't quite strike this balance of finding the right partner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and have the kid myself. And so I went ahead and went on a sperm hunt, which was quite hilarious because men want to give you sperm all day long until you ask for it. And then they're like, I'm very, like, I don't know. I think that maybe I shouldn't. I'm very, like, I want to, you know, I would want to be just more involved in my child's life. I'm like, you have 8 now that you have no relationship with. Give me a cap of that, man. And nobody would give me. And so I had to, like, really get creative. And it ended up working out just fine where we, you know, a young gay man who I had married, you know, when in my youth, and then he died. His little brother stepped forward and gave us sperm, and so now the actual, Zuri is biologically related to the people I am, related to by law, by marriage. So
Nice.
It's been an interesting whole journey. But I think that I wanted to have a positive relationship with someone that I had a biological relationship with. I wanted my DNA to show up as positive somewhere because I've had such a terrible journey with family, from like abandonment at birth to like, people responding really negatively to my being queer, to just distance because of my own ability to, at least create boundaries that keep me safe.
Let's see what Cynthia Nixon has to say about this. She directed this Mother Struck play.
Yes, she
play.
directed
Mhm.
Mother Struck, yeah.
Well, it's a completely autobiographical story about Staceyan's quest as an aging, she doesn't look very aging to me, but those are her own words, as an aging single lesbian
Geriatric.
to become a mother after she has not been parented by either of her biological parents and not parented really terribly much by anybody. And so it's an incredibly personal story. It has a lot of pain in it. It has a lot of humor, and it has a lot of suspense because the quest to get pregnant can be very dramatic. But I've heard few pregnancy quest stories as dramatic as Staceyann.
Staceyann, why are you doing this in front of thousands of people? What do you want them to take away?
There's so few stories about women who do not live in the lap of luxury, who maybe are artists or lesbians or immigrants, whatever, who want to become parents, and it's not a straight path. We're not. I'm not gonna marry someone and then we're gonna get together and have a baby together. That's not what happened with me. And so there's this other route to family that I explore.
Okay, so this led to having your beautiful and brilliant daughter Zuri. And what is that experience like for you?
Oh, Zuri's a joy. I mean, I think she's going to kick my ass in the teenage years because she's remarkably eloquent and sharp of tongue. And that combination with like a teenage life, I think is going to kick my ass. But, and she's like, getting more and more confident with each year. For those of you who've seen videos of her, she's, eloquent and confident and smart and empathic and, very sure of herself. And, she's very sweet now and very like cute and yeah.
This is an older video, so are we going to get audio for it? Let's see. But we get a vibe of Zuri's been on camera and been publicly speaking since she was a little baby. Let's see if we get audio. No audio? Okay, that's fine. Well, she's now like 9 or 10?
She's 10 years old. She's about to be 11 her next birthday.
Wow.
And, she's spending now, she spent a year and a half in Jamaica. So now she's got like the Jamaican swag on her.
Good.
Yeah, she's an interesting kid, like pushes me to grow and change every day. Raising a girl, I think, oh yeah, I'm definitely a feminist and I want to raise a girl with a sharp tongue, with a sense of herself until she, comes at me with that tongue. And then I'm like, what? Girl, I'm your mother. And then she's like, what? You told me that I have a right to speak. And before you know it, we're in the middle of a throwdown fight.
Oh my gosh. And I know Jamaica. So I'm like your daughter. So I'm born in New York City and then moved to Jamaica and lived there in Kingston. But I lived there for 10 years. And I remember that, like, the discipline being so different. Like her being American, I'm sure she feels more like she can speak to adults a particular way. But in Jamaica, it's much more boundaries in terms of how you speak to adults. So I figured she's like navigating that now, right?
Yes, basically she was in America calling her principal by the first name, and now she can't even look at the, at a person who's maybe like 18 or 17, and like she got to check, oh, is this an auntie or is this just someone who I can use a first name with?
Yes, I know Jamaica does not play with discipline. Before we wrap up, I definitely want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned relationship, you're in an open relationship. And I've been reading so much about you and over the years. And I'll just add to, like, I'm very inspired by your work. I also write. and I'm writing my memoir right now. So I'm really so excited to be able to connect with you over the years and to see like the work that you're doing. But so I'm researching and reading, and I saw you said that you had a series of like 2-year relationships and really devastating breakups. With is this probably part of being queer or lesbian, like all these like breakups and so on? And but so where's your love life now?
Well, I'm in a relationship for about a year now with someone. I've never really been inside of a relationship where at the 1-year mark, I was like still like ecstatically happy. I think we're good together. I think we listen to each other. I think we make compromises quite easily for each other. I think we, I don't know. I think that the other thing that's really interesting is that Rachel has her own life, a very full life, and I have my own life, which is very full at the same time. And so, we have lots of opportunities to miss each other. And then we also have a lot of opportunities to see each other and like revel in the beauty of each other. We're very different people, but we share like our core values are similar. I mean, I'll say that she wasn't necessarily, she when she came to me, she was polyamorous, and I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to tie anybody down, but like I can't be with all these people all over the place, let's put some structure on it. And we both like kind of come to a wonderful agreement where, we allow each other space to experience intimacy with other people, but there are like very strong boundaries and ground rules about what makes us us, and what we have to do to maintain that usness in the face of our relationship being porous with regard to sexuality.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that, having an open relationship, which I've been in as well, and being polyamorous. And, so it's good to hear you share that. Do you share this on social media as well?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's no secret. Like,
no secret.
Rachel's got like 2 million fans on her page, and she talks about being poly. So this is no secret.
Good. No, that's really important. So the farm. So you end up buying this farm that you mentioned earlier with like 70 acres. I know we have some images of the.
Staceyann and Zuri had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm they had some chickens, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm they had a community. They had a community, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm they hoped to get some cows and some visitors and some people and some cooking and some yoga studios. Anyways. Some cottages. Yeah. Kindred on the Rock. Come by.
Kindred on the Rock. How do you go from Brooklyn to the farm in a country?
Me again, I don't even know. First, I want to apologize. Like, we planned this. I had the lighting in my house. It was going to be sexy. I was just going to. Now you're just watching me in my car. I have to just tell you that, like, you got to come and, like, I don't know, you got to, like, see G at work more. This is not G's office. Like, this in the car situation. I'm so grateful for people who make the space to listen to conversation regardless of the challenges. I'd love to field more questions. How do I go from Brooklyn to the farm? I don't know. The pandemic just like fucked me up, man. It turned everything upside down. It was like, yo, this concrete jungle living where we just live on top of each other with this teeny weeny space can't work. I needed space. I needed sky. And I needed community. And the way that I knew how to do that is try to get as much space as I can and invite a lot of people to come. We just put in a whole bunch of beds. If you are okay with hostel living, you should come now. If you are not okay with hostel living, you gotta wait until we get a few cabins, sorted out, which is not too far from now. If you want to support us, please give us money, give us a bed, give us a yurt, give us some t-shirts, give us like, I don't know, send some oil so we can cook. You can do L, like Staceyann Chin, Staceyann -CHIN, the @ symbol for @Staceyann Chin, @Staceyann -Chin for Venmo, for Cash App, it's Staceyann Chin. It's, chinpoet@gmail.com, chinpoet@gmail.com, CHINPOET@gmail.com. Send us money, send us rice. Or the community I live in is very poor. Nobody has like running water because the water doesn't come up there. We have like a bunch of catchments that we share with other people. We need so much assistance. You know, people in the community, they need pads, they need T-shirts, they need food, they need, you know, my workers need, you know, Wellingtons, galoshes. We need hats against the sun. We need sunblock. We need bug spray. We need everything.
So let me tell folks to go to Instagram to follow Staceyann Chin there, because I know all those things you said at the top of how to pay. It's at the top of your Instagram when you go there. So you people, please go there, follow. And we have so much access in America. You know, like see my closet, and I know so much people have these closets. I could probably give away half of this stuff and still have a lot of stuff, and that's a lot of people in America. So we can work on getting more things to folks.
You work in a vest and tie, I must say.
Thank you so much.
Sharp.
Thank you so much. Yes, I appreciate it. So yeah, so you can't imagine my closet, but I'm down to bring some of this to people there in Jamaica. I like this. So we got Jasmine here who said she wants to volunteer. So we'd love to get more information.
Click on the link in my bio on my Instagram page and fill out the community interest form. We would love to have you come and do all kinds of stuff. You know, we have a sliding scale for like what you would pay to eat and stay there. Like we're trying to make it work. We're trying to build it together. So just come and build it with us. Come dream with us. Come, you know, I don't know, answer the phone or like, you know, run a lump of laundry. So anything, whatever. We're trying to make it. There's 70 acres and a house and a few cabins. Come.
No. That's amazing. And we have so much folks watching. We really appreciate everybody here. Got my pal, Nick Harris, who partners with me to do Blink and Our Woman. So shout out to Nick. Got my girlfriend, Sammy, is here. I see a lot of folks here and just so grateful for everybody who has joined us. Before we go to, I want to talk a little bit about writing. You have two books. You have your memoir and you have your collection of poetry. Is there a third book in you? What's your thoughts?
And you can go to Audible to listen to Motherstruck. I did the Michelle Indeglio-Cello and I did the sound for the audiobook for Motherstruck. So there's a whole bunch of like, you know, ways that you can consume my work.
Okay. And what's next for you? What do you see coming up next?
I gotta write the story about. I'm writing a book, a play. I don't know what it is yet, but it's called Prodigal, which is like me coming back home to Jamaica.
Yes.
So I've got that going on. Like the working title is Prodigal, and I got this farm that I'm trying to get up. You know, like we have to make it work, and like we have to figure it out, and like put up railings and make it safe and create security so that, and then I have to build the community with the outer community, like the village, to make sure that we are safe as queer people and that we are giving back to the space that we share with people who don't have very much. You know, and I write articles all the time for different people, for different places. You know, like I just wrote an article for the New York Times. I'm a writer in many different places, but you can consume my work on social media. I be writing all kinds of stuff all the time. You know, find me there, support me there. We are writers. I mean, it's a time in our life when we aren't working very much. We're not traveling and performing because we're not having event after event after event. So we need every penny you can give us, $5, $2, $3. It helps with all kinds of things. So find an artist and support an artist, you know, a Black queer artist, a BIPOC artist, you know, support us because we are not being invited to do a lot of work right now. Gee, I'm not hearing you. I don't know why. Are you muted?
It's muted. Yes. Okay. So I was just laughing because my pal Nick is saying, don't act like you don't know us when G and I arrive. So I'm just going to add that I do want to come there, but I would like to maybe work on my own little cabin, get a little AC unit. So, you know, I like to be very, very comfortable. So I don't know if you have AC there.
You don't need AC. You're like so high up. It's cold at night.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. What about lizards? Any lizards coming in?
During the day, but it's very, very breezy and it's comfortable. It's not like, you know, it's up in the hills in Jamaica. It's like, it's in Point Hill. So it's at the top of the mountain that they used to use for navigation going into, the ships used to use that point to navigate going into Kingston Harbor. It's pretty comfortable, you know.
So
Diana
King,
Diana, please bring Omar. Oh, we need Omar running all over the place. Please, please, please bring my child.
So we got Diana King and Tiffany saying I'm too stir. So a little bit just like to be very. I got spoiled by America. I've been here a very long time. One last question about the cabins. What about lizards? Are lizards coming into the cabin?
Lizards are all over the place, but I've never seen a lizard up there. I don't know if it's the mountain or what, but but stop being like a chicken. And we have 17 chickens and 10 cows, and we're about to get 2 guinea fowls. Come and see the animals and come be with us. Come commune with nature. See that red dirt.
I will come. I'm a city girl, New York City, Kingston, now in Fort Lauderdale, but I will come and spend some time. I'll bring my pal Nick, who's from Tallahassee. I know this little country. And so let's see here. Oh,
you go travel for some queer people. Come on, man.
I'll be there. So, and I want to also add, you said you were planning to be sexy and all this stuff. I wanted to say you're still sexy there in the car, and we really appreciate you taking this time to be here with us. Now, Khalib is like, is G flirting? No, I'm not flirting. So
you ain't gonna tell me. I want to say to Diana King, who said get 2 puss. You ain't gonna tell a lesbian to get some puss. We on it.
Lesbians do like cats. So we're gonna wrap up now. And I just want to give you an opportunity to, if you have any final remarks you want to share as we're closing.
I really want to be an institution that is supporting the community. So we're trying to get a health fair up there. A lot of people, there are no doctors that are serving the community there. So we're trying to get a health fair. So if there are any doctors or nurses on board who want to help us to curate a big health fair where people can get tested, blood pressure, they can get like some medicine for their ailments. We'd love to have that. Final comments like live your best life, come to Kindred on the Rock, come be with us, come be with us. Like, COVID taught us we don't know how long we have on the earth. The best we can do is make the journey so that we can share spirit. Erna Broadba always says to me, come, let us touch flesh, because we don't know when the spirit going to leave us. Erna Broadba, come, make us touch flesh. We don't know when the spirit leaving. Find your way to us, find your way to each other.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for being here with us. We have people like Amy Cesar in California, Angela Branahelm, New York City, people here in South Florida, all over. I'm sure people there in Jamaica too. Really appreciate everybody coming. Need to also mention that we have been funded by our Fund Foundation and Community Foundation of Broward, and we're so grateful for that support that allows us to put on programming like this. And thanks to the museum once again for welcoming us. And shout out to our producer Khalib, who's behind the scenes getting all this fat. You see how bossy we got bossy up here? You see how bossy we are? We got that going on for us. So really grateful for that. And special big up to a Caribbean space that's making space for queerness. You can't say that too much. Yes. And it's got emotional. Yes. Special big up. It means so much for us to have this space. This museum opened in 2020, and I was excited about, there's going to be a space for all Caribbean people, which is something to, like, even as Jamaicans sometimes would be a little elitist, I felt good to be like, I'm going to really connect with people and be proud of all of us as Caribbean people. But I didn't imagine that in a couple of years that we would have a space that we would be here and be welcomed, and people are learning about us, and it's just been beautiful. So yes, thank you for that. Staceyann, it's just been an honor and delight. Thank you for all that you do and for being so accessible to us all. Just really so grateful.
Mad love. Thank you for making space and for having conversation. And please, everybody, forgive me for this half lit in the car situation. Just think of it as like a sexy, like a don't go chasing waterfalls kind of video.
Very sexy. Thank you. Staceyann Chin.